Welcome to the latest Watercolors Aquarium Gallery podcast, brought to you from the Aquarium Rush Studios in downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. My name is Ben.
I'm Amy.
And I'm Charles.
I got a little bit of an attitude tonight, guys. I'm not going to lie.
For probably the nicest subject we could be talking about.
I know that maybe that's why we need to talk about this. We need to have some fun.
Yeah, definitely overdue.
What do you think, Charles?
I'm ready.
Did you have fun with this one, or was this one hard for you?
This one was hard for me because I made a list and then I had the thought of go listen to the top 5 dream saltwater fish podcast. And then I realized I almost verbatim made that list again. And then I had to take a step back, think about the criteria we'd laid out for ourselves, reevaluate, and now I have a new list, a better list, a stronger list.
A list no one's ever seen before.
That's the dream.
So maybe we should talk about what the list is, huh?
Yeah.
Nah.
So this is our top 5 holy grail fish. And some of you might be thinking, well, that sounds familiar. You guys already did that. Oh, no, we didn't.
We specified that this was not your top 5 holy grail fish.
These are the fish we consider ultimate fish, the best in their class.
I liked the terminology outstanding in there.
Outstanding in their department.
Yeah.
Yes. These are those that rise above. These are those that are, okay, there's this really amazing dream fish I've always wanted. Maybe someday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. These are those, there's this really amazing dream fish, and I'll never get one because...
X, Y, Z, I guess we'll figure out.
Right.
Yeah, this is a particularly fun one for me to think about because, like you said, it's not just fish that I think that I will be keeping one day. Like, we did our dream fish a while ago, and that's those are the fish that I'd love to get a chance to keep sometime in my life. Some of them I might not necessarily set up a tank for, but I just really admire them.
There's actually one on my list that I have had. And there's a couple of them that have good stories for. Mm-hmm. More than one.
I have 6 or 7 on my list.
Of your top 5 list?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think we've had all of them in here but 2.
Really?
Mm-hmm. At some point.
Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 13 because I can't count the line that says holy grail fish. So I have 13 in my list. But some of them I have a specific reason.
Have we never explained to people on the podcast we normally have longer lists than we actually talk about, and we you and me in particular have extras, and then we'll on the fly be like, this one suits the discussion best, so I'm going to put this one in.
Oh, definitely. Or somebody might take mine, and I really want to have 5.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a competition. Make no mistake.
It is, for sure.
We're all tallying our own points, and surprisingly, we all win our own counts.
So the reason that this always sounds off the cuff is because it is. We don't discuss at all with each other what our top 5 lists are. I mean, that's my main reason for coming up with more than 5 fish is...
Mm-hmm.
The closest we come is we'll talk to each other about how are you framing making your list?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we just need to be like, I can't quite figure out how to handle me making my list. So maybe getting a glimpse in what your thought process in will help. But I think that's really the closest we get.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even do that most of the time.
No.
What was your main criteria, Amy? Like, how did you choose to put a fish at the holy grail level?
It's one that I felt like needed to be distinct from other similar fish.
Okay.
And sort of a fish that you would make a deliberate choice to keep, if that makes sense.
Sure.
You don't want a tang, you want this tang.
Right. And you're going to pretty much design things around that because if
Yeah.
you get one, you're lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Would you?
I went with the idea of looking at particular groups of fish I like and then finding just the most elevated version of that. And it could have been, maybe it's the hardest to find, or maybe it's just got a really weird story, or maybe there's just, who knows, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I tried to, this one for me you're allowed to laugh because context for people who haven't been in the store lately. I've been on antibiotic lately, so I haven't been able to drink with everyone for the last little while. Tonight's the first time I've been able to drink, so I've been thinking very hard about what I want to drink. And so for me, sometimes a good whiskey is not just it's good whiskey, but there's a story behind it.
Do tell. I'm usually the story guy, but...
Yeah. So, like, the whiskey we're drinking tonight is called the Dry Fly, and then I cannot remember the variety, but it's basically a GMO whiskey. It was a hybrid whiskey between wheat and rye that was developed about a century ago. And so for me, this whiskey was just really fun because there's a local liquor store. Can I name drop them?
Sure.
Siciliano's Market that I like to go to. And this was the whiskey that made me realize that maybe they were honing in onto what I like because this was a suggestion they make to me. I had no idea what it was. And he said something to the effect of, well, I've got this GMO whiskey. And I was like, leaned in and I said, tell me more. I would describe it as rye light. So I was purposely trying to find fish that had a good story.
Save it for your whiskey podcast, Charles.
I like the story end of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's kind of stealing my jam, but that's all right. I got good stories on my fish too. Well, Amy, let's start it off.
I want to kick it off.
Yeah.
So, for me, it was pretty obvious that a tang needed to be on this list.
Uh-huh.
And to me, if you lined up every tang in existence and removed every scrap of pricing, rarity, difficulty, it would be this one every single time. The Achilles tang.
Nice.
Damn it! Good thing I have alternates.
It's got the perfect size, it's got the perfect profile, and it's probably one of the most striking fish in the ocean to me.
Yeah.
They're absolutely incredible.
They're gorgeous.
Now, this one's Holy Grail for a variety of different reasons. First of all is going to be availability and price. They're pretty much only collected out of Hawaii. There are a couple of other locations around Australia where they exist, but I don't think that they're coming out of there very often, if at all.
Little side note on that. If you're seeing an Achilles tang on a price list and it's a relatively reasonable price and they're saying not collected in Hawaii, it was probably smuggled from Hawaii.
Right.
Not collected in the locations that Amy is talking about.
Yeah.
So just a little side note there.
If the price is $600 or less, do not purchase it.
Right.
Because
they
it was
did not do
poached.
that ethically. Right.
Yes. So by and large, they are just not available currently. On top of that, there are a couple of other things that make them a little bit more touchy than other tangs. Really high oxygen needs, really high metabolism, so they need to eat a lot. They often come in starving and dying if they're going to come in at all, because being shipped in a bag for a couple of days doesn't really coincide well with high oxygen needs. So it's a holy grail because, first of all, you can't get it. And then if you do, what quality is it in? And if it is in good quality, how long can you keep it that way and how?
But if you pull it off, which it is possible, like you can, this is not an unachievable holy grail fish.
Yeah, not like some of the other ones on my list.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you talk about the oxygen needs of this fish, that cannot be understated. Like one of the statements around here that I like to joke about when people are talking about how much current should I put in my reef tank. One of my phrases I like to use is, well, these fish, many of them come from places where people surf, right? They are used to that water moving. When we're talking about an Achilles tang, that's literally where they come from. The North Shore of Hawaii is just covered in Achilles tangs. The famed North Shore where all the surfing happens. When you see some of those surfing videos from Hawaii and the diver's clearly in the water and it's a half underwater, half above water shot, or they catch that perfect video of the surfer like diving under that wave when they're paddling out and you see fish scooting away, look for the little orange dots. Those are Achilles tangs. So the oxygenation and the current that happens in the water where these guys are from is just out of this world.
Yeah, so they're virtually completely intolerant to the water quality issues that are going to limit oxygenation. And you got to have an established reef that is turning over to keep them.
Move that water, move that water, move that water.
Yeah, if you can get them.
That was a great place to start with a Hawaiian fish. I happen to have a number of Hawaiian fish on my list. So
I'm going to tell my story with this one.
you
real
tell
quick.
your story, Charles.
This one is a holy grail for me for all the same reasons Amy talked about. But then it hits my list specifically because I murdered one. We spent 2 months getting it healthy. It was a great personality, gorgeous fish. And like when Ben said, like, it's attainable to do that, like to get it there, we had it.
It was perfect.
And then I killed it because I set up a drip line and then forgot about it. And when you know how Ben and Amy spent like, let's say 5 minutes talking about oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. Guess what happened? It ran out of oxygen.
Yeah, it's a scenario that I have seen other fish survive. I can't say I've never left a drip line on overnight. And with a clownfish, it was fine. This tank never had a chance.
Not so fine.
And this one for me was one of the first things I put on the list because for me it's a holy grail because it's unattainable. And I genuinely feel like I'm never going to get a second shot at this fish. And that bothers me.
We could have had a second shot if it wasn't for the Hawaii shutdown.
Exactly.
I'm going to say one quick little thing about the Hawaii shutdown because we touched on that and we touched on the no smuggling out of Hawaii thing. I do not agree with the shutdown of the collection of aquarium fish that has happened in Hawaii. Even more than that, I do not agree with anyone who poaches, no matter what the reason. So me saying I don't agree with the shutdown, the collection shutdown in Hawaii, is not saying get fish out of there because it's fine. No, I do not agree with that. Even more than the law.
The decision to shut down Hawaii was not based in science.
Right.
But that means they were making an emotional decision.
Right.
When you poach, you're proving them right.
Exactly. And making us look bad. All right, next fish.
I got you.
All right.
The candy basslet.
Hang on, I got to scratch that off mine.
That's a good one.
So I want to be clear. This is not the Swiss Guard basslet. This is the candy basslet.
Right.
Now, the difficulty in why Swiss Guard basslets are expensive isn't necessarily that they're deep water fish. It's that they're largely nocturnal. That presents difficulties. Now, the candy basslet is a true deep water fish, like 200, 300 feet down. So this is like an $800 fish if you can find it.
800.
Yeah.
I saw a pair go for 2,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to pay some crazy person to go down and get that for you.
But it's a gorgeous
They're
fish.
amazing.
Oh, I know.
They're absolutely.
I'm so glad we have crazy people.
Are you familiar with that one, Amy?
Yeah, I'm familiar with pictures of it.
Okay, yeah. I've never seen one in person either.
I've never
No.
seen one.
I did. I'm sorry, I did.
I've never seen one.
I'm going to tell a story on that one too, though.
Well, so for me, the fascination on this one is if it's never come up here, I'm kind of, and I'm being sarcastic and joking, I kind of just have a fascination with deep water fish, especially reef, quote unquote, reef fish that are on that fringe between the twilight zone. And
right.
There's just something weird about that just really is fascinating to me. And so things like the hellfrix firefish, candy basslets, they just speak to me because that's a very narrow habitat range.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just cool.
Yeah, living life on the edge.
Big habitat, though.
It's big, yeah.
You know, the thing with, so candy basslets are found in the Caribbean. A lot of the Caribbean is 300 to 600 feet deep, which is where their range is.
Yeah.
Right? So there's tons of them there. They're just really hard to get to.
Yeah, and that's what makes them cool.
Yeah.
It's like they're there and you know they're there.
Right.
But then the question, it's like trying to get to, you might as well be trying to get to the moon.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like
sure.
you can see it, you know it's there, but how are you going to get it?
Right. Right.
And there's just this aura of mystery to it that's just fun.
Once you have it, this is one of those fish that part of the intrigue about it it's different than the Achilles tank, because the Achilles, it's not an easy fish. It's a doable fish, but it's not an easy fish. A candy basslet, they're easy.
Yeah, and that's just what makes it even cooler. It's
Right.
like the hard part is just getting it.
Yeah, if you could take care of a Royal Gromma, you can take care. Well, you want to make sure there's a few more overhangs than you want for a Royal Gromma, because they do want some dim areas.
Wait, you mean the deep water fish doesn't want to get blasted in the
What?
eye with light?
Yeah. Oh, really? You can't just chuck your $800 fish in just your average reef tank? It'll still probably do fine, but yeah, it deserves a tank for itself.
Yeah.
It does. And they work in pairs.
Yeah.
And one of the
That-
cool things about this one, both pairs can decide what sex they want to be and change.
Yeah.
What a wild
then-
party.
Let's change back.
Man,
You're the girl. No, I'm the girl.
fish are weird.
I want to be the girl that's weak.
We'll both be the girl. Okay, fine. No eggs for you. Or no fertilization for you. Anyway, we can take that one way too far, so we'll just stop there.
I just love the
There's a sitcom in there.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
the social, I guess, arrangement of that kind of thing as a human is so fascinating to me.
Right.
One of the things I like to say around here is that nothing just happens randomly. It's just there's a pattern. We just don't know enough about it to know. Like, they're making decisions. We just have no idea what the pattern is. And that's another thing that I'm just like, they're weird and I love it.
Yeah. It's whatever they think is cute.
Yeah.
The biological reason for that ability to change, kind of not quite at will or at random, but pretty darn close to it, is because that environment that they're found is so sparse, that these fish are so spread out that, yeah, there's lots of them because it's a huge environment, but they're not packed in tight. There's just not that many resources to pack themselves in tight. So if they run across another of the same species, they need to look at that as a mating opportunity or turn it into one, regardless of whether or not they're males or females.
They're the
Yeah.
little Swiss Army fish. I love it. You just have a thing for purples and pinks and
I
stuff.
do.
Yeah.
Like, for me, when I do saltwater, I want it to be different than my freshwater tanks. And
Yeah.
I can get good blues, good reds, good oranges in freshwater. It's amazingly difficult to get a good purple in freshwater. So when there's a good purple in saltwater, it's immediately attractive.
That's
to
the
me.
fish for you. Lots of the basslets have good purples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole group.
That's why I like them.
Yeah.
Great one.
Excellent choice.
Ben, what are you going to start with of your 35 on your list?
Actually, I just thought of another one, so it's 36. So I'm going to start with a story of a really cool store in downtown Chicago. And a little side note, I know they moved about 2 or 3 years ago and have not been to their new location, but I was at their old location a number of times. It's called Old Town Aquarium. And this is a downtown Chicago shop. So they've got downtown Chicago money behind it. And I've been in there 5 or 6 times. And anytime I've been in that shop, I have seen 4 or 5 fish that were 4-digit price tags, or at least above $500. And that's where I saw a candy basslet. That's where I saw my first in real life betta macrostoma was at Old Town Aquarium. Huh. And where I saw my first one of this fish. So I'm walking through the store with my wife. And did I ever mention my wife has like champagne taste? Yeah.
She's a classy
She
lady.
has an eye for quality. She does. So we're walking through and she walks up to a tank and there's this cute little 3-inch angelfish that she's never seen before that comes trucking out. And she's like, look at, how come I've never seen one of these in your tank? It's only $59.99. I mean, look at that fish. It's an amazing fish and you don't have one. I looked at it and I said, honey, I think you should look a little closer at that $59.99. That was $59.99. And it's not that downtown Chicago, they're going to price it like way more than we're going to price it here. If we had that fish here, it would be $6,000 as well. right? And it's a conspic angel. They're amazing little fish. Now, this to me is one of those fish that part of its allure is its rarity. If this was a $60 angel, it would not be a Holy Grail fish, right? Like what Amy was saying about the Achilles tang. If Achilles tangs were available and they were $50 tangs, we'd still love them just as much.
It'd still probably be my Holy Grail tang.
Yeah. Conspic angels are really pretty. And it's not like they're ugly angelfish, but there are lots of other angelfish that are prettier than conspics. But conspics make my list because that was 5 years ago that we saw a conspic for $6,000, right? They are a Hawaii endemic.
There we go.
So suddenly that almost unattainable conspic angel becomes completely unattainable because of the Hawaii shutdown. So Holy Grail fish. So I had to do something with angelfish when I was coming up with Holy Grail fish. I didn't come up with my Holy Grail angelfish. I came up with the Holy Grail angelfish in that genus, which I believe is Chaetodontopoulos. Yeah, Chaetodontopoulos conspiculatus.
That's a great name.
It is. Yeah. Which is not a genus that we get much of. The Singapore angel is the only relatively available angelfish from that genus. And then there's a couple of others that sometimes show up. But
I just had a member of our audience pass me a Reef Builders article titled "The Conspicuous Angelfish Juvenile is the Ultimate Ugly Duckling."
Okay, wait. The pass from the studio audience. We need to give a little shout out to Nick.
Yep.
By the way, so Nick actually is in our studio audience, and Nick is the one who edits our podcasts. So all of these crazy ramblings that you're hearing from us, you should hear it before Nick gets his hands on the editing tape. So thank you, Nick. You do a great job.
Thank you, Nick.
That article wasn't by Jake, was it?
If it was, that's really funny. Who's the author for that ugly duckling one?
It is Jake.
Yeah!
Shout out to Jake Adams, by the way.
Shout out to Jake Adams. How dare you?
But I mean, he's not wrong.
Let's see. Okay, so this is a fish that has kind of tangentially come into our circle a couple of times because we had a former employee who heard that it was possible to keep them and really, really wanted to. And since then, it's kind of stuck in my head as like, this has got to be one of the most gorgeous fish around, and it's just really enjoyable to have. The way that it acts, the way that it is to keep. I want to talk about an orange spot filefish.
Oh,
I thought that's where you're going.
That's cool.
That eats, which we know is possible. We know that it is possible to keep it. And that's the thing that makes it Holy Grail to me.
Right.
It is almost impossible.
Almost, but
not.
It's so close.
We did put some effort in trying to get them to eat. We got them in a couple of times, and it was a really difficult fish to watch starve.
Heartbreaking.
And we put a lot of effort into it. We tried a few things to get him to eat, and it was just not the right time and not the right scenario for him.
It was my third attempt with that fish.
Yeah.
And one of them on my second attempt, we got all the way through quarantine and we're getting them to fatten up. And then they just all of a sudden slid downhill.
Yeah.
And then we tried them again and we didn't even get them even close to that far.
Yeah. And the timing of that was we were still trying to work quarantine out. We were still quarantining everything.
Right.
So like there's that little glimmer of hope to me at this point of like, maybe, or we're getting close to that, or like maybe we could do it.
Right.
And that's another, like, oh, that's the Holy Grail, right? That's that thing that you got to keep chasing.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a fish that has been bred in captivity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's doable, and it's been raised entirely and kept entirely on prepared foods, converted over to it, and it's possible to do that?
So the reason that this is really difficult is also the reason that it's necessary, because these fish are obligate corallivores and they're specialized corallivores.
Right.
So they only eat coral and they only eat particular types of coral. This is a fish that is going to go extinct probably.
Yeah. If acroporas go extinct, so do orange spot filefish.
Mm-hmm. Or even if they become scarce.
Yeah, that's true. If they get down to a certain level. Right.
It's just so intimately linked that pretty much the only way that these fish may be able to survive in the future, they're already declining, is in captivity. And they're one of the few fish that I would say that about. So it's both important and just that little bit of impossible that really triggers me wanting to figure them out.
You know, it's probably going to end up being the most commonly available fish that I'm okay with being on this list.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's lots of amazing fish out there that I really want to have someday, and some on the dream list. Mm-hmm. But that's different than a holy grail list. Mm-hmm. And this fish, I think it qualifies.
Yeah, the thrill of the chase.
Yep. So if somebody wanted to attempt this fish, what would it take?
The setup can be really simple. They don't get big. 4 inches, maybe a 40 breeder or something like that is probably what I would aim for.
I think I like the height.
You like the height?
I would almost go with a 38 tall.
That'd be a great tank
as a
for
minimum,
it.
But a little bigger would be better. But
yeah, they're not going to dart around, so it's just about like getting them that space that they can sort of orient around, and then kind of slow moving, kind of very relaxed environment. I wouldn't keep them with clownfish or really aggressive feeders, but it'd be a great addition to like a mandarin or seahorse or pipefish tank, that kind of vibe.
I think they'd fit with that. Mm-hmm. You could do them with gorgonians because they wouldn't touch gorgonians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think what most people are getting them on is mastic or some of those other stick-on foods.
Right.
So just kind of developing that relationship with them and them knowing that they can go to a certain spot to feed every day. But low flow, but high oxygenation, macroalgae, that kind of thing.
Good turnover, but low flow.
Keeping them, if you can get them to eat, is easy.
That's it.
It's just getting them to eat.
Yeah.
One day.
Someday we're going to try it again. We're not ready yet. By the way, if you say, hey, order me some orange spot filefish, I want to try it.
Nope.
Yeah, we're going to say no.
No.
If you come to us and you sit down with us and say, all right, here's my plan. What do you guys think? Mm-hmm. We might talk through trying it with you. But don't just say you want to try it. That's not going to happen.
If our plans for a separated conditioning system come to fruition, I would be interested in trying them again without the initial introduction of an appetite suppressant and copper.
You know, that's... Maybe we should try it sooner than that. And the reason that I'm saying that is, all right, so you all know about our quarantine process, and we've spent years trying to perfect it. When the last time we tried orange spot filefish, we did not have our copper levels perfected.
That's not true. We had we had an orange spot with me and my tenure here.
But we did have one a few months, like not a few months ago, but like last year.
When we were using the Hannah testers?
Yeah.
Okay, I take it all back.
But that one never ate.
We're not ready.
That's why I haven't been saying anything.
Okay, we're not ready. Conditioning system first.
Yeah, because
Nick's going to have to be doing some editing around here.
No, that can stay in. I'm fine with that staying.
That was a really mean thing to do to Allie right after she started. Because you fall in love with them. Mm-hmm. If you've ever had a possum wrasse, the personality is very similar to me, where they're just kind of lurk around. They're always looking at you. They're so cute.
They have really articulate eyes.
Mm-hmm. You always know what they're looking at. They're just one of those fish that's just so entertaining to be around. Amazing. And really tragic to watch starve.
Right.
So yeah, the Holy Grail.
I like it. It's a good one, and not one I would have expected to be part of this conversation, but I'm glad it was.
Yeah. It's not rare.
Right.
Yeah. I got one in a similar vein for you.
Okay.
Got to prep myself for this one. red mandarin dragonette.
No, I put it too. Wait, red mandarin like which species are you thinking?
This is technically an undescribed species.
Okay.
So this would be what's
Synchropus CF splendidus.
Thank you.
Oh, I see. You're talking about the red version of the green dragonette, basically.
Right.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's technically an undescribed.
Because I was thinking of
Right.
the ruby red.
I've had them.
Yeah. This one is one that I wanted to talk about and put on this list because this is a fish that a lot of people want, and I think it's way too attainable. As in way too easy to get your hands on.
Oh, right. Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Because this is a fish that should be a $300-$400 fish. Because this is a fish that deserves the attention that someone would give an animal.
I think it's like that with like you could almost just say dragonettes,
Yeah.
right?
But for this one, I was trying to pick the one that was the prettiest and the weirdest, and just being an undescribed species by itself made it. It was like
Makes
for
it
me,
cool.
and it was like okay.
Yeah.
But that's literally I don't disagree. That's not me disagreeing with you. That's
Yeah.
just me saying, oh, I had to pick one.
Right.
But
Yeah.
their metabolic demand is insane.
It's huge.
I have seen a green mandarin clear out a 300-gallon tank with a 80-gallon sump of copepods in 4 months.
That sounds right.
And that means that, to me, in order to think you can do a dragonette, you need to anticipate that you have to train it at some point to take frozen foods, because those copepods are just buying you time.
Right. Agreed.
And
Even if you are continually reintroducing them via live cultures, I just don't think that's even enough. It's a delay tactic.
this next detail is the part that I'm like, this is the part that the way things are, people need to think really hard about doing mandarins. The industry standard from the
Dragonettes.
data I can find for dragonettes is that the survival rate from collection to store is 1 in 8. So that means that in order for you to try a mandarin, and our success rate with customers is around 25%. So that means that 1
That'd
in
be
8
1 in 4.
died to get to us, and then
For a 1-4 chance of survival.
yes.
Yeah, and
And
that's
that's
probably
best-
over a year, not
Yeah,
even over
right.
their full
That's
lifespan.
best case scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with those numbers the way things are now to get that fish.
Oh, you have to go one step further. You have to convince us to be okay with that numbers, because, by the way, we are not okay with dragonette numbers out there. So
no, but
we
I'm
don't-
just
we
saying
don't get
that
it.
if you're like in Ohio and you're buying from your local fish store, that's what you need to know about this fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And every time we have this conversation, we get voices chiming in saying, well, I've had a dragonette for a long time, and that's great, and I'm really excited for you, but it also doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
Because for that one, there's that other, what did we say, 7 plus 3 or whatever that didn't make it.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're fine with 10 of them dying on the way to your tank, then you can have one. Maybe.
Maybe. Then maybe you can try one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, you can't get it from us. So you have to find some other reputable place to get it from, because if you start from a place that doesn't put extra care into their fish, your chances of success go down even further.
Yeah, collection is super hard on them too.
Right.
Yeah. Have we ever talked about why collection's so hard on them?
Because they get it with a little miniature harpoon.
Yeah.
They are not collected with nets,
No.
by the way.
They're speared with needles. Little pew, little harpoon the size of a
Like-
pen with a needle. Yeah, that's how,
How
they're
else are you
collected.
supposed to drag them out of a rock
Right.
to catch them?
Yeah. So this is a fish that I wanted to talk about, because it's so easy to find, but it shouldn't be. And it's for me, this fish had to be talked about because you and I, and this is me pointing to the table, you guys and I have talked extensively about how, like, if you had to pick one fish in the world and say that's the prettiest fish,
Oh yeah.
at least two of us is going to say mandarin.
How can you even imagine a funkier looking fish?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to not go in too much more into it because I have other stuff on my list, but I chose Sycorax, which is the ruby red.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is to me like the craziest of the crazy looking fish.
Yeah.
But also, I've never seen an adult one.
Yeah.
They get the same size as the other ones.
Right.
They get 3 inches long.
Yeah.
The biggest one I have ever seen in our tanks or in anybody else's is maybe 2.
Yeah.
So
Success,
that's kind of its own.
yeah.
Yeah.
Success in this hobby is measured in years, not months.
Right.
Can you say that again?
Success in this hobby is measured in years, not months.
Thank you. I knew that. We all know that here.
But-
30 minutes into this podcast, I'm sure everyone who's listening probably knows that too. We're preaching to the choir, but
Right.
but if you
Right.
didn't, now you do.
If you've had your fish for 3 months, you say, "See how good I am at it." You got a lot to learn, son.
But if you're 3 months in, I genuinely wish you the best of luck.
At 3
Yeah.
months, if your mandarin isn't like gaunt or your
You know?
dragonite isn't gaunt, then
Yeah.
then you got a shot.
The good
Because-
news is they are trainable. You can do the work and make it happen, just not after you've already added them to a huge tank. You
Right.
need to spend the time.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anyways, this one for me, it had to come up.
Oh, for sure.
Just because for me, with the whole idea of a story, I'm like, this is one that the hobby as a whole, we need to contend with and talk about, because
Yeah.
we as a whole, as a hobby, need to ask ourselves, are we okay with this? And for us here at this table, the answer is no. But
No.
that's a question that more people need to be asking.
Right. Right. Agreed.
Did you put dragonets on your list at all?
I did not. I only put fish on my list that I thought there was a shot.
I put a pair of healthy eating ruby red dragonets. So real pie in the sky level
Definitely
stuff.
holy grail right there. Right. Right.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry to be such a downer.
No, I'm gonna lighten things up a little bit. I have some other downers too that will
Talk about
will
things
come
we
up, but-
like.
Yeah. So I talked about angelfish and how I had to separate the angelfish into. I couldn't say the Holy Grail angelfish. I had to say the Holy Grail Chatonatoplus angelfish. And oh, by the way, I have the Holy Grail Pomacanthus. I have the Holy Grail Centropage, and I have the Holy Grail Paracentropage.
Wait, is your list all angelfish?
No, because there's only 13 on my list.
Oh no.
So I'm going to talk about the Paracentropage next.
Okay.
Might be the first fish someone thinks of when they think Holy Grail fish. I know, the peppermint angel.
It was my first thought too.
Right.
You mean an entire car?
Cross that off.
I did look to see what the current price on a peppermint is.
Yeah.
It's $26,000.
Ugh.
Wow.
5 digits.
Whew.
It is actually on the cover of one of the angelfish books.
I think it's Scott Michaels.
I think you're right. Yeah, it is. It's Scott Michaels' Angels and Butterfly book. Charles, was this on your list?
It was not.
Really?
I'm not much of an angelfish guy.
But it's a deep water fish.
it is. But I'm not much of an angel guy.
All right, so this fish is it's like I guarantee you almost every kindergarten class has drawn this fish without knowing they're drawing this fish, right? It's called a peppermint angel because it has really distinct bright red and bright white stripes
Yeah,
on this
this
fish.
isn't like a peppermint shrimp. I want to hone this home.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's kind of red and let's say, I'll be generous and say beige.
Right.
This is red and white.
Red and white stripes like a
Some
peppermint candy cane.
pretty little yellow accents.
Yeah, just on the
Beautiful.
fringes of the
Awesome.
fringes of the fence. They're absolutely incredible looking fish. So the conspict angel I talked about, it's a Holy Grail fish, And it's really expensive because it's rare. If it wasn't expensive or rare, it would just be another angelfish. The peppermint angel, no. If that fish was $60, it would be the most popular angelfish in the hobby.
Yeah.
Everyone would want one. Everyone would have one. It would be, I have a clownfish and I have a peppermint angel.
Right? I feel similarly about this fish to dwarf angels as I did about the Achilles tang to tangs. You lined them all up, got rid of the price tags. That would probably be my one.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
But price tag is a factor. I did consider it for my list. And you know why it didn't make it?
Why?
Because I thought if I had $20,000 to throw at a tank, I'd be setting up a shark tank. That is genuinely the only reason it didn't make the list.
Well, I mean, you don't need the tank for this fish. You actually could do this tank realistically for less than $1,000.
True.
55. Like, so I know, I haven't looked in a while, but about 5 years ago I looked and there were 3 known fish in captivity, 2 in Japan and 1 in LA. No, 1 in Manhattan. And 2 of them were in 55-gallon tanks.
That seems perfect.
Right. Here's the
maybe a 75 because 55-gallon tanks are lame.
Wait, here. Can you say that again? No, wait, don't. We might offend some people.
Shots fired.
That wasn't just across the bow. You took out part of the mast of that one.
Can I pop in real quick before you do thing? For me, I think the ideal tank for these, in my head, now that I think about it, would be a 65. Only because I love the idea of having your rock work have depth where it can do like from the back around.
Oh,
because that color would look really cool coming from like if you had gradiated light front to back. And you had
but you got to be really careful with the gradiated light, right? Yeah. These are in 55-gallon unlit tanks.
It's true.
Because they don't want bright lights. They're going to hide the whole time.
I'm not saying bright light. I'm saying like, let's just say you have like a little stream.
So these fish are found over 500 feet, right? There's a really funny video of 2 of the divers collecting these fish and they have microphones on. So anyway, they mixed helium with the oxygen in their scuba tanks. I don't know if any of you ever sucked on a helium balloon before, but you're talking a really funny high cartoon voice, right? So you hear these 2 guys chasing down peppermint angels talking in cartoon voices. It's hilarious. If we find that video, I will post a link along with where this podcast is somewhere.
Yeah, we talked about the basslet. Like you need to pay a crazy person to go down there and get it. Mm-hmm. Well, this is beyond that. This you need to fund an expedition for somebody to go get it.
Yeah. Somebody explained to me the difference one time between deep diving and diving with nitrous. And it's the difference between getting a moped license and a pilot license.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Other than that, like if you set, like I said, 55-gallon tank, I don't even know if there's any tank mates with this fish, but you're buying this fish because of personality, stature, and color. Probably keeping it alone. They're going to be found in places where there's very few other fish. So they're not going to need dithers.
I bet a candy basslet would be fine.
That might be okay. But man, could you imagine if your candy basslet and your peppermint angel decide to go at it?
Oh, that would be heartbreaking.
Some well-chosen inverts, like a pair of, I don't know, blood red shrimp or something like that.
That probably would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Of course, you got to keep your tank so dark that just like out in the wild, it's not going to look red and white anymore. It's going to look black and white.
Black and white. Yep.
Yeah.
So there we go. I would consider that one of the top common rare fish. How'd I do with that?
Uh-huh.
All right. What you got, Amy?
All right. So this one is going to be probably the strictest example of a holy grail fish to me, because this is a small group of fish where to me this one is just obviously the shining star. Because if you're talking about triggerfish and you're whittling it down to reef-safe triggerfish.
Hang on. I got to cross something out.
The crosshatch has the best of every world of that.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, okay, sargassum triggers and blue throat triggers are both independently some of my absolute favorite reef fish that exist.
Yeah.
This one combines the awesome color that a blue throat has, not the same color, but a really good color.
Better.
And the awesome texture that the sargassum has.
And then more color.
And then better. Yeah.
Xanthicthes mento.
Yes.
If you're looking for the scientific name there, Nick.
And this is one that we have technically had in the store before because somebody brought it in sick and we had it overnight and it died.
Oh, that's right.
And it was rough.
Yeah.
But man, it was really pretty. Even dying.
They're amazing.
Oh.
They're incredible fish. They do really well as pairs. Oh, by the way, that was a Holy Grail fish 3 years ago. Now it falls under the category of the Cosmic Angel. They are a Hawaii endemic.
Yeah.
This is a bunch of barnacles.
So like 3 or 4 years ago, they would have been like $3,500 for a pair. And now,
Throw it out the window.
how much is a wild-caught yellow tang today? Don't buy one because it's poached.
Yeah.
Right?
Zero, infinity,
infinity,
$1 million, doesn't matter.
Like, how would we price that? So we have a wild-caught yellow tang that we've had now for like 4 or 5 years. We've got a number of them in service tanks. How would you price a fish like that? I don't know. And that was actually rhetorical. Nobody has to come up with that. But so then now we take a yellow tang that 3 years ago it was an $80 fish. 20 years ago it was a $15 fish. Now you can't get them. How much is a yellow tang worth? And now take what used to be a $3,500 pair of fish. How much is a pair of crosshatch triggers worth today? Again,
Is this where we say priceless? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, but I know I really want one.
I almost put a coal tang on my list. I didn't. So that's why I'm bringing it up kind of
Yeah.
ad hoc here a little bit. But coal tangs used to be like $60 tangs. They were kind of, well, I can't really afford this tang and I want a different one. I'll just get a coal.
Yeah. Sure,
Right?
why not?
Yeah. And now, I mean, the yellow tang, at least they're going to breed in captivity, or they are. But no one's going to do that with coal tangs.
Yeah, and frankly, it's really hard for me to see right now captive breeding as the alternative.
Yeah.
Because captive breeding is the alternative if you want to raise fish fry.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to raise young fish, but if you want to add fish that are ready to go in your 200-gallon reef right away, captive breeding isn't going to get you there right away.
You need a 3 or 4 year old yellow tang.
Right. And are they going to be growing it out, or should you do it yourself?
That's wow.
These are the questions we're struggling with right now. But wait, we were talking about crosshatch triggers.
Yes. And I don't know if those have been better in captivity. I don't think so.
I don't know of a single trigger that has been successfully bred in
I thought the
captivity.
blue thread had been done. Maybe I'm getting confused.
You can look on Reef to Rainforest's website. They
Oh,
have a
yeah.
page for that.
I think Nick is doing it right now.
Reef to Rainforest. 2 is in like the number 2. And then under their marine tab, they'll have like a breeders list.
So the genus Xanthicthes, while we're looking this up, it has 4 fish in the genus. The crosshatch, the sargassum, the blue throat, and then there's one other one, and I cannot remember what the name of that one is. It's not one that we ever see in the hobby.
There's a couple of little stragglers that I saw when I was looking today. That
More than 4?
Yeah, it was like one of those where there were some that were like barely described or undescribed. There's, according to Wikipedia, 6.
6. Okay. 2. There are 2 that I don't know of then.
So it's Oro marginatus.
That's the blue throat.
Yeah. The outrigger, which is Ceruleaniatus.
That's one of the weird ones.
Greenii, Lineopunctatus, Mento, and Ringens, which are
Ringens is the sargassum.
That's the sarcasm.
Yeah.
So, but those are ones that, like, 2 of those are ones that don't have a Wikipedia page.
Okay.
So, like,
Okay.
they're that level of described.
So these are, like Amy said, some of the very few reef-safe triggerfish. And the reason behind that is what their feeding strategy is. The sargassum is the easiest one to describe, right? So they don't live on reefs. They're the ones that inhabit flotsam. So floating debris in the water is flotsam.
Such a good word.
I know, right? Floating. Flotsam and jetsam are the 2. Remember from The Little Mermaid, the 2 eels were flotsam and jetsam, right? Flotsam is floating debris. Jetsam is sunk debris. So the genus Xanthictes, those triggerfish, their whole life goal is to feed on things that are above them. That's what they target. Sargassum triggers live in the Sargasso Sea, which sargassum is these huge mats of floating algae out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And that's how they feed. So in a reef tank, they're used to being in deep water. They're not used to looking down to get food. So they're often okay with shrimp if the shrimp are in the tank before the fish are introduced. They don't really mess with coral. They don't move things around. Some triggerfish will just pick coral up and move it to see what's underneath. Right? and the Xanthictes genus, they just don't do that. The crosshatch triggers are just the holy grail of that group.
Yeah. And apparently they are the only one that has been bred in captivity.
They have been.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I didn't see who did it, but it's on that list.
There's also the queen triggerfish and the clown triggerfish on here.
But they are not Xanthictes.
They're not Xanthictes.
We were talking triggers.
They're ballastoides and pseudoballastoides.
There you go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The other triggers are cool, but like you're not going to beat that genus for suitability to a reef tank.
Right.
And, yeah, I will still take a sargassum or a blue throat any day. But if I could, this would be the one.
Yeah, I think that definitely that fits the criteria quite well, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
How you following that one, Charles?
I'm following that. I'm following that one up with Flamehawks.
Flamehawks.
I feel very strongly about this one.
Because that's we have those. We get those. We get those. Yeah.
Is it that it's the peak of the small hawkfish?
Yeah, they cost like twice as much as the other hawks, but for that you're getting way more color, and I would argue way more personality. My experience with pixie hawks, falco hawks, and the flame hawks, those are the three that I've kept in tanks. The falcos and the pixies don't even come close.
They have that articulated neck.
Yeah,
they can look from side to side.
Come close to the flame angel in personality.
Flame hawk.
Thank you. Flame
autocorrect.
Flame hawks, man. Hawks in general are just very curious about things outside of their tank, but flames in particular seem interested in you and trying to figure out what you're doing. And that's just intriguing to me as a fish. Just anything outside of the tank, like any fish that's intrigued by something outside of what it can mess with.
They'll pop over to the side of the tank and hang on the wall and just look at you. Like, hey, what's going on?
And so for me, I know this is going to be the most ubiquitous thing I put on my list. Maybe not compared to the mandarins, but that's a different thing. But I think this is a fish that rightfully a lot of people should be like, yeah, that's my holy grail fish. And someone comes in and says, I want that to be my showpiece. That's the word I'm looking for. Showpiece fish. I'm like, yeah, that's a pet fish.
They're fantastic.
So that one for me, just in part because we've had two come through and recently.
Yeah.
Very different personalities, both very outgoing, and they both stuck out to me. So they've been on my mind.
That's a very obtainable fish. I don't know if there are hawkfish that are super rare and hard to get. I've never looked into hawkfish like that. Yeah.
But
which means, guess what? That one qualifies as the coolest of the hawkfish.
Yeah. I would take this one any day over any other hawkfish.
Judging from how many people came through the store and said, someday to that fish.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that fish...
It does earn it that placement.
It's not just its color. It's that people would stop and watch it because it was watching them.
Yeah.
That's an easy fish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Regularly we'll get them eating pellet food.
Oh,
but for sure, mysis, they'll take it as soon as they see a mysis shrimp, they're going to eat it.
And it's not on this $20,000 or $50,000. What did you say the peppermint angel was when you looked? $26,000. It's not that unattainable.
Right.
But it is for a smaller reef tank. Can I justify spending this amount for the average person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But I just wanted to talk about this one.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and I don't disagree with anything you said, but the long-nosed hawkfish is better.
No. The long-nosed hawkfishes, for me, their personality is nowhere near as captivating. They're cool, but the flame hawks just really do it for me.
I'm supposed to be the tiebreaker, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna take the safe route and say you both win. So is Nick.
Genuinely, meaning me and Amy, are asking you, which foot would you like to shoot?
Yeah.
Do you like chocolate or vanilla? Well, what is
that's
it
obvious.
in?
Chocolate's way better. Who wants vanilla?
For some things,
That's like plain.
plain. You need some better vanilla in your life.
I do, but I call it chocolate.
Yeah, I don't know. This one, what's the word I'm looking for? This is a very regal fish.
Yes.
It's mildly stuck up. It's
They do look when they do look at you, they look at you with an attitude.
yeah,
That's for sure.
With judgment in their eyes.
Yeah, but there's something to it about like this fish just toes that line enough that I'm not mad at it for it. I'm like, okay.
You're right,
Yeah.
you are better than me.
Yep. And so
It's pretentious.
every single flame hawk I've ever met has stuck out to me. Every single one.
Yeah.
And so every time we get one in, I'm excited.
When you brought it up, I thought, you sold me.
Yeah.
Totally fits the bill. That was an excellent addition. And it's an attainable holy grail.
Yeah, for me, I wanted to put it on this list because I thought, hey, everyone has a holy grail. We're talking thousands of dollars here on a lot of these fish. This one, it's expensive.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, I think if that's your end goal, that's attainable.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
Great point.
Yep. All right, is it my turn?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to talk about a true holy grail and a one of a kind.
Okay.
So for a while, and actually I shouldn't say for a while, there's a trend out there among some fish collectors to get aberrant examples of fish. Mm-hmm. What aberrant means is a naturally occurring genetic anomaly. And the one that many of us are aware of is the lightning maroon clown.
Damn it,
right?
it's on my list.
But I'm not,
No. Spoilers.
I'm not talking about lightning maroon clowns today. Someone else might later in the conversation.
Maybe. Who knows?
But I had requests for regal angels where the striping wasn't right, and we actually were able to get a couple of those in for a while. Right now, there's some aberrant forms of Scopus tangs showing up that look really cool.
Yeah.
There's some natural occurring hybrids of lemon peel and half black angels.
Oh, I do like that.
To me, it looks like let's take a lemon peel angel and let's make it a little grayish.
Yeah.
But the one that I want to talk about is let's take a fish that recently became unobtainable and look at a more unobtainable version of it.
Oh, no.
So there are in the wild, there are aberrant forms of yellow tangs.
Which are already sort of an aberrant form of Scopus tang, right?
That's true.
Because for a second I thought that's where you were going, and that would have been hilarious.
I thought about, actually, I did have yellow tang on my list, and then I thought, no,
That's just bitterness.
Right, it would be just bitter, and so I can be a little bit bitter, but then talk about a really cool, really rare fish that has a really cool story.
So, like, I just have to make the joke. You passing over the yellow tang and going for the aberrant form of whatever you're doing here is like the Inception meme where he's like, we have to go deeper.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like the Russian dolls, and I just
Pulled one more out.
pulled one more out. So aberrant yellow tangs, what they usually are is the color morph would be considered leucistic.
Oh, that
Right.
would be cool.
Yeah. So it's a yellow tang that's got some white blotchy, or it's a yellow tang that's white with some yellow blotchy patterns to it. And the patterns can get pretty specific and very individualistic. So I've seen two of them in captivity. One of them was, yes, at Old Town Aquarium, and one was at a wholesaler out in California. But I also saw one in the wild. And here's the really fun story, right? So I have talked in the past about one of my mentors who passed away named Bob Fenner. Bob Fenner, author of Conscientious Marine Aquarium. We brought him in to do talks at the Aquarium Club. I had the privilege of spending a weekend with him. He was just one of those incredible, high energy, full of life, passionate people. The hottest flames burn out too soon, or however that phrase goes. And that was Bob. He was just the energy level that the entire room had when Bob Fenner walked in was always notable. So anyway, crushing on Bob Fenner a little bit there, but he's worthy. So I was snorkeling in Hawaii. I had, yes, the privilege of doing that, and it was incredible. And we were just snorkeling right off of the public beach. I mean, this was not like on this incredible snorkel trip. This was a public beach that looked like a standard public beach with, tourists and hot dogs and nothing special about this beach. But swimming around, I found and actually was able to photograph an aberrant yellow tang. And it was incredible. I got to see one in person, and I got some pretty decent photographs in it.
He has showed us these photos. We can verify.
Yeah. So when Bob Fenner was still around, he posted a picture one time of an aberrant yellow tang that he photographed in Hawaii. And I looked at that picture and I thought, wow, I have one too. And I took a picture of it and I posted, hey, Bob, I saw an aberrant yellow tang. He was posting these on Facebook. And I said, I saw an aberrant yellow tang when I was snorkeling in Hawaii as well. Here's the picture. And then we both all of a sudden had these two pictures lined up. And we realized that they were probably the same fish.
Oh, that's cool.
And the pictures were 10 years apart.
Wow.
So the patterns on these fish are very, very specific to the fish. I mean, it's like spots on a Dalmatian or patterns on a cow. Only these fish are exceptionally rare. There's just not that many of them out there. And these fish have the same pattern and they're 10 years apart.
So are you saying that your Holy Grail fish is that specific fish?
It's that specific fish.
He must still be out there.
Only I never want to have it in captivity. That fish deserves to swim free forever.
Oh.
No, actually, my Holy Grail fish is aberrant versions of some of the commonly available species, and specifically an aberrant yellow tang. They are out there. Sometimes they show up in the hobby.
I've seen a lot of cool pictures come through Reef Builders and stuff like
Right.
that of some of those.
Right.
Super cool.
I chose it because it has a cool story. Mm-hmm. So Nick just asked us how much one of those would cost if we ever saw one, and we need to clarify: would that be today's prices or before the Hawaii shutdown prices?
Before.
They were retailing for around $1,000 to $1,500. Yeah.
Is it like a 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000? What do you think?
Oh no, it's one in 20,000 or 30,000. Yeah.
They were exceptionally rare, and they were priced that way because that fish was a unique pattern. There was
Right.
no fish elsewhere in the world that was like that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So to a collector, I mean, that's what a collector wants, right? Is a one of a kind.
Is it like a deformation of some sort?
I would call it either it's likely a type of probably not even a mutation. It's probably a type of developmental thing. Yeah, pigmentation, developmental, let's say, issue.
Aberrance.
Aberrance is a good word, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a little anomaly that pops up in genetics from time to time, like a cat being split in half or whatever. There's all sorts of little things
Or an
that can
albino.
happen like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a leucistic as opposed to an albino. Yeah. has a higher chance of survival than an albino, but a lower probability of existence. Yeah, there we go.
Cool.
All right, Amy.
So I took Holy Grail in a couple of different directions here, and one of them to me is the Holy Grail of having the luxury and experience to plan and set up exactly the tank you want for exactly the fish that you want. Like right now I am in my first like actual reef tank at home, and so much of it is just, well, can I figure out how to grow coral myself? And let's throw some in and see which ones I can do and which ones I can't. And that's what for most of us our first couple of tanks are like.
Right.
Is trying different combinations of things to see what work. But if I had the money, if I had the space, if I had the tank, if everything lined up perfectly, I'd probably set up a tank for garden eels. And specifically the splendid garden eel, which is Gorgia proclara. There are actually 2 genera of garden eels that are going to be like the typical one that you think of, which is like 12 to 15 inches. And there are a few different species in those. This one is white with orange stripes. It's probably the prettiest one that's out there.
Do they have like orange banding around them?
Yeah, that's the one.
Where are they found?
They are found, I think they're just Pacific generally.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't have specific locations for them. But yeah, like that whole luxury of being able to set up a tank around a specific fish and having the space and money to do it is really what that is to me. And to keep these particularly weird fish is like an extra privilege on top of that.
I bet that 120 weird cube acrylic tank would be great as a garden eel tank.
Yeah, it would. But even
It's
just
true.
something like a 125 or something like that, where you dedicate a really nice section of the sand bed for them, you could probably have things like pipefish and dragonets and filefish like we were talking about before in with them. You just got to make sure that your sand bed is at least 5 inches deep in some points and at least like 10 inches deep in some other points. And that's what a couple of people that I've talked to who keep garden eels have said, although you'll hear a whole range of what that is.
You need 24 inches.
Yeah, exactly. For fish that are 15 inches long.
Right.
But even to that point, being able to like adjust around them and find that perfect environment where they are the most happy and comfortable is a challenge that I think would be really fun to be able to take on.
I've seen some of those at public aquariums, and the personality of that group, they almost act like ants or bees, where it's almost a hive-like personality where they exist as a common organism, not an individual.
Yeah, like the way they react to each other is that like instinct is there. But the more I learn about them and the more I learn about like their breeding tactics and stuff like that, like it's a really fascinating group of animals. Like they will, when it's mating season, they'll start building their burrows closer together, and then they'll like the males will just scooch up their burrow next to a female and just start fighting anybody who comes anywhere near it. Like that, the whole colony dynamic there is something that you don't get to see in saltwater very often.
Yeah, that's true.
So behaviors are, to me, some of the things that draw me the most into aquariums and the deeper into it. And that's like the ultimate weird behavior that you can keep. So it's garden eels are always going to be at that like end of the yellow brick road for me.
Right. It's obtainable, but you got to really be dedicated to it.
Yeah, you got to want it.
Yeah.
They're not that difficult to keep. Live foods would be ideal, but you can train them on frozen. You need to feed them really frequently. They're not that difficult to get. It's there. You just got to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And that is
and dedicate a space to it.
Yeah, that's the holy grail, more than like getting the fish or more than being able to have them. It's being ready for them.
Yeah. They're cool. They're so cool. I love it. Good call, Amy. I like it.
Yeah. Plus, people are breeding them, and it's really fun to watch, and it makes me really jealous.
They're being bred in captivity?
They are being bred in captivity, and apparently they're not that difficult to get to spawn.
Really?
Yeah. Like if you
Are
have a
they
colony
raising-
that's happy, there's like a really crucial point that's really difficult to get past.
Okay.
But spawning them is pretty easily attainable.
Wow.
So I can't imagine that raising them is going to be that far. Like the people who are doing it are going to figure it out
They'll
for
pull
us.
it off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Then we can play with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, since someone spoiled it, no. I genuinely wanted to talk about the lightning maroon clownfish, though. Just because this fish has a very specific story.
Oh, yeah.
And it touches on many aspects of the hobby that I really enjoy. So, let me think. I think there have been two lightning maroon clown fish that have made it from the wild. Now, the first one didn't make it.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know it didn't make it.
The second one is the one that ended up in Matt Pedersen's hands. Every single lightning maroon clownfish currently in the hobby is descended from this one fish. So
That part of the little story I did know.
yeah. So part of why I wanted to talk about this story a little bit is, so Mama lightning maroon clownfish died earlier this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
How old was she?
Well, she's a wild caught fish, so we don't know for sure.
How long was she in captivity then, I guess is a better question.
She would have been in captivity. I think she came in 2010, so that would have been 11 years in captivity.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was moderate sized when she came into captivity. So Matt's estimate that she was probably in the 13, 14 year range when she died. So let's talk about Mama Lightning Maroon real quick, just because this is really cool.
Yeah.
So this is, for me, why this is so cool. Mama Lightning Maroon clownfish has a known collection location.
Right.
And not just, she's from Papua New Guinea. She's from Fisherman's Island. And if you really want to delve into it, I'm told you can backtrack which part of the reef she came from. I've never gotten that far, but the idea that, like, this is a tiny island.
Yeah.
So being able to go from the entire Pacific Ocean to this little, like, couple square miles island is amazing to me. And so if you're looking to find a lightning maroon clownfish with like that provenance, you do have to do a little bit of digging. I've done it in the past, and the nice thing is that the breeders for commercial strains are actually pretty forthcoming on where their broodstock comes from. So I'm not going to tell who does what, just because I feel like if you want that information, it's attainable. Find it yourself. Like, be brave and ask that question.
I think this is not the place for that, Charles. I think you should be forthcoming.
But even the ones that aren't using just the Papua New Guinea provenance, they're getting them from the Solomon Islands. And there is pretty good evidence that those would be considered the same species. They genetically seem to be very similar. It's just more about whether you want to stay within species lines or population lines.
So do you know if the male came from the same collection area?
I'm nodding
As
my
the
head,
female.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
The original male came from the same collection location, same island, same reef.
Increased the likelihood of carrying the genetics of the lightning.
That was the original
even though
plan.
it didn't.
Yeah. That was actually the original plan, because Matt Pedersen was trying to hedge his bets. When he was originally breeding it, he was assuming it was going to be a recessive trait. It is not. It's actually a partially dominant trait.
Wow.
So he got lightning maroons in the first generation spawn.
Wow.
That's so cool.
We were talking partially dominant. We were talking breeding first generation lightning
Oh,
maroons.
there we go. So if you've ever been around raising clownfish and watched them through their life stages, it's a while before you know what the color pattern is going to look like, right? And like even on Ocellaris clowns, they start out with one stripe, which is kind of interesting because tomato clowns start out with two stripes and then lose one. Ocellaris clowns gain two. But you watch them kind of progress from that 1/8 inch size when they start to get their color, 1/8 to maybe 3/16 inch size, where they start to get some color and then start to see those patterns develop. So could you imagine that moment for Matt Pedersen when he's like, what color are they? Because I want maroon. I want the lightning. I want the lightning. I got the lightning.
Eureka.
It's so cool. Like, so all credits to Pedersen for this, but he maintained a blog when he was originally breeding these.
Right.
And you can find it. And if you want the entire story of this fish from when he attained her to when he raised the first spawns, it's out there. You can find it. And it's a cool story.
Yeah.
Yes.
People like to talk down about the information age, but man, what an exciting time to be part of history. Because you
Yeah.
can just look up what he was thinking at that time.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Right. Some credit has to go to, I don't remember the name of the wholesaler. So when the wholesaler represented this fish, they knew that they had something special. And the first maroon clown that I didn't realize didn't make it, I believe that first maroon clown sold for $14,000. The second one came in, and this wholesaler knew that they had something special. And they kind of put it out there with this, I mean, what's the right thing to do? What's responsible here? We want suggestions. We want offers. And by the way, it's not necessarily about the money. It needs to go for really good money, right? Because of what went into getting that fish. But what's the right thing to do? And they got some really big offers for that fish in the tens of thousands of dollars. And I don't know this story to the number, but I know what Matt did is he said, I can't or am not willing to pay you those kinds of numbers. But here's what I want to see happen with this fish. And here's what should happen with this fish. We should figure out how to make this fish available. And so rather than taking this crazy big, huge sum of money, they took a much lesser amount, knowing Matt was going to breed that fish and make it so that right now, right, like, so, you know, $10,000 or $15,000, whatever that first maroon clownfish went for. Right now, you can buy a lightning maroon clownfish for less than $100.
That is so cool to me.
Right. Right. And that's because that wholesaler and Matt saw that. Now, you know, don't get me wrong, that wholesaler knew and had some arrangement with Matt to get a certain number of those fry, right?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was
Yeah.
they knew there was more money coming in if it went to Matt. But they didn't take the quick dollar. They took the, all right, let's make this a fish that's out there. So
Those first generation lightning maroons, they were going for 4 digits.
Yeah.
oh yeah, the first time I saw them show up on a wholesale list, they were wholesaling at 400.
Woo.
It does take in so many of like the cool, like so many cool pieces of this hobby, like the history, the people who went into making it available, the fact that it used to be really rare and now you can get it, like all those things.
Yeah.
And also it's still just objectively an amazing looking fish. Like it's not just the geeky part of it. Everybody who sees that is like, man, I kind of wish I had it.
That's funky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a holy grail fish and make it available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like this is like this and my last one, I'm not giving any more hints than this, were put on specifically because these two stories give me hope for the future of this hobby.
Right.
And I really wanted to temper these against the previous There's purposely why the Mandarin was said earlier.
Gotta get past it. Eat your vegetables. We can talk about the ones that like it has no caveats other than it's a maroon clownfish.
Yeah. Well, and the maroon clownfish also had the really added benefit, at least in my mind, because I have that slight conservation. I say slight, like jokingly here, conservation focus, where I genuinely think if lightning maroons had not hit the hobby when they did, we would not have white striped maroon clownfish in the hobby at all, because they were kind of on the way out, because gold striped maroons are technically a different species. They are less aggressive. They're easier to spawn. They are easier to pair. They're easier to... So for less effort, you're getting more money because they're more desirable.
Yeah.
Why would you as a commercial breeder breed a white striped maroon clownfish for extra effort and less money?
Right.
On the off chance you might get a lightning maroon.
Now lightning maroon clownfish have brought that back, because in order to keep breeding lightning maroons, you need more white stripes.
True.
That's
I
a
think
great
that's
thought.
cool.
Yeah.
Yep. They're still
Good
jerks,
pick.
though.
They're still
They're
jerks.
still maroon clownfish. Let's
Right.
not make any mistake.
No, but
Yep.
I have a soft spot for jerkfish.
No.
But yeah.
I like
Anyways,
it.
Thanks.
Guess what group of fish I'm going to talk about?
Isn't it another angel?
Yep. This one I'm talking about because it was a holy grail fish for me, and then I got one. I had one for a while. I don't anymore, but I did have one for a while. And so this is the one that I would say is the holy grail of the genus Pomacanthus. So of the big angels, this to me is the coolest. And it does meet the criteria of if all of the angelfish in the genus Pomacanthus were the exact same price and the exact same availability, this one would still be my favorite. And I think there's one other one that I think is more expensive, but it's an ugly duckling because it's a really rare, hard to get one. And there's another one of the big angels that's in a different genus that's more expensive, but is also ugly. So, but then there's the clarion. I'm not even going to talk about clarion. I'm going off on tangents. You know that happens with me sometimes. But Chrysalis angels.
Jake is sitting here taking notes for more ugly duckling articles.
Right. Yeah, it's the ugly duckling is the old maiden angel, which is a holocanthus angel from the Atlantic, found off the coast of Africa, the east coast of Africa. They're ugly, but they're an angel. Anyway,
He just rolled his eyes at that angel.
yeah. I mean, it's true. They're not anyway.
The Chrysalis is stunning.
They're stunning. They are found off of the coast of Kenya mostly. They're found in various parts of the Red Sea and Indian Ocean, but mostly off the coast of Kenya.
Did you mention Kenya?
Maybe. There was a guy in the hobby for a while who was known as the angelfish guy, and he had a 400 something gallon aquarium with a pair of them and a whole bunch of other angels in a tank. And he's one of those people that successfully managed to pull off a group of angels. And he had a pair of the Chrysalis angels in that tank. And I remember hearing him do a talk, and he's talking about his angels and his rare angels and exciting angels. And I raised my hand and went, is that a pair of Chrysalis angels in your tank? And he went, what? You know Chrysalis angels? So, yeah. Anyway, they're a classic Pomacanthus angel, right? So big. They're going to get into the 12 to 14 inch range. It is possible to do a pair, but it's not easy. They're not reef safe, although we're going to someday hopefully figure out just how not reef safe they are. This is a relatively attainable holy grail fish. They're going to be in the $400 to $600 range. So we're not talking about 4 digits. We're still talking 3 digits. But to me, that one qualifies. And I did.
Yeah.
I had a juvenile. I got it for an unreasonably ridiculous low price. And he was an amazing little fish that I had for a while. I got him because he had hole in the head lateral line erosion. And I turned it around and that healed up completely. Other reasons it didn't make it, but it was an amazing angelfish, and someday I'll have another one.
Is this the fire story?
No, the fire story was a different fish.
Okay.
That was a powder prawn tang.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yep.
Well, I'm getting to the simpler side of my list too, because that one is just, it's expensive. You can get it. It's just really cool, and you should try.
Yeah.
if you
This
can.
is your last one, right? This
Yep.
is number 5.
And mine is, it's similar to that, except for people are going to argue with me that it's not as pretty as the more common version of it. I love the magnificent fox face.
Oh, yeah.
It's totally better in my mind.
It's totally better.
Well,
We're on your team, Amy.
thank you so much, guys. I appreciate your support. Because every time I bring it up, it's like, yeah, but the other one's bright yellow. I'm like, I don't care. It's so beautiful.
The other one's the magnificent is red, white, and blue.
I know. And the contrast that you get with those, it's like color blocked, like against the backdrop of a reef tank. That fish shows up even better than a bright yellow fish would.
Oh, yeah.
But I love its bright red mohawk. I can't figure out why this fish is so much more expensive, other than that it's Indian Ocean, so maybe it's not collected as much. But if this isn't the coolest fox face, I don't know what would be.
Do you want to know why Indian Ocean fish are more expensive?
Because it's harder to collect stuff there?
Nope.
No?
Oil.
Oh, that makes sense.
There's more money in or I should say there are less poor countries around the Indian Ocean. So here's a little side note on why some saltwater fish are cheap. It's because you don't have to pay the people a whole lot of money to collect them.
Right.
Around the Indian Ocean, you do.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the general volatility of that area, but that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
There's better jobs.
When oil prices go up, so do the price of purple tangs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whereas, and we keep talking about like,
I never made that connection.
Yeah.
Wow, that like
Yeah.
I just fight. I like
Yeah.
that pauses me thinking back on it. I was like, oh my god, that tracks.
yeah. We keep talking about how like giving people sustainable ways to make money off the reef is so necessary. In that area, maybe not as much.
It's still necessary.
It's still necessary, but not
much.
as
Right.
not as possible.
Right.
There's better ways to make money out there.
Right.
But anyway, the magnificent fox face. It's a fox face. It's cooler. It costs more.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. They are the genus Cygnus, which includes the one spot, the no spot, and the magnificent, and I believe there's one other. Those are the reef safe rabbit fish.
Yeah.
Many of the other rabbit fish are not reef safe.
It's because there's mostly herbivores, so they're not as
Yes.
coral eaty.
But the orange spot rabbit fish
Oh yeah.
loves zoanthids.
Yeah, it looks like zoanthids.
Right. Occasionally you do get something in the genus Cygnus that does like to munch on some of those little things, but magnificence and one spot file or fox face.
Vulpinus, I believe, is
Vulpinus, that's
yeah.
right.
And then there's a low.
Low, that's
Low.
the one. Low.
Yeah. Cygnus
Vulpinus,
low.
low, and then magnificata, or I think it's been
Yeah, it's
whatever that one. The cool one.
The cool one.
Yeah.
Magnificus.
Yep. That's
Has-
what I thought.
Have you guys ever noticed there's a particular color that doesn't pop up very much in fish that I like to talk about?
Are you going to talk about a hellfreak firefish next?
I'm not.
You're not?
I'm not.
He's
'Cause
just
you
saying
could.
he doesn't like yellow, and he's
I'm kinda
being a snob
surprised.
about it.
Like,
It was on my dream fish.
We
list.
need to rapid fire some Holy Grail, but that's I think the Holy Grail firefish.
I got a better one. But yes, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Amy's right. I don't particularly like yellow.
Yeah.
So when people are like, it's a fox face that's yellow, like when they're talking about the other ones, I'm like, yeah, that's a detractor for me.
Right.
If your main color is yellow in most fish for me, I don't know what it is. I don't have a particular love of the color yellow. So
Yeah.
like if you'll notice, like purple and yellow is fine because the purple is worth it if it comes with the yellow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But not if it's just straight up yellow.
Yeah, I can't say I don't love the Vulpinus. I still do.
I still love them because their personality just overwhelms you.
Yeah.
But
Boxface are some of the sassiest fish you can keep.
Well, they can be. They're venomous.
Yeah, and they know it.
So I would say the Magnificent has, this is just me agreeing with you long-windedly, but it has everything that every other foxface can offer and more.
Yep.
Agreed. Yep, agreed. So what are you rounding out this list with?
Okay. This one has a long story, and this one for me is really exciting, and I had the Lightning Maroon as my precursor to it, and this is all context because I have been keeping saltwater tanks since 2007. I won't say I was keeping saltwater tanks, but I don't say I was aware or in the hobby until around 2015, 2016. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the Lightning Maroon, by the time it had started becoming ubiquitous, I had missed the mysticism of it.
Oh, sure.
This fish, it's happening right now.
Oh. Is it another maroon?
It is not.
Oh, what is it?
Are you talking about your blue stripes?
No, it's the Cuban basslet.
Okay.
Oh, right. Right.
This is a story I've been watching intensely because it's one of those like, it's happening right
Yeah.
now.
The one that's crazy, crazy expensive on our captive bred fish list. Is that what you're talking
Yes,
about? Yeah.
but it's been dropping in price.
It's
Yeah.
the solid red one, right?
No, it's this one.
Oh, right.
the one that
right.
used to be on the list.
Oh, that's right.
list for
Because it's yellow.
Yeah.
But this one has a really crazy story.
Charles likes a yellow fish.
I do.
Charles likes a yellow fish.
It's genuinely why I thought to bring it up because
Right.
I was like, the next fish is yellow.
It's one that used to be on our list for a bunch of thousands and now is only on there for a couple thousands.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a really crazy story, though. And this is one of those stories that really gives me hope for this hobby because, and I have the store phone here because I'm going to name drop the people involved because these people deserve to be talked about.
Okay.
So think about this. This is the Cuban basslet.
Yeah.
Let's briefly allow our audience to think
So
about the
where is that from?
Yeah, let's briefly let the people think about the politics of that and move on and think. So that means there's an embargo and imports from there.
So what else do we get from Cuba legally? Nothing.
Nothing.
So, this is where I'm going to name drop these people.
Okay.
All right. So this is Todd Gardner, and he's affiliated with the Saltwater County Community College, by the way.
Nice. Wow.
Jared Goldenberg of Fluid Dynamics International and a quote-unquote confidential third party. They spent 4 years getting the permits to properly import 6 of these.
Wow.
Those numbers have never been officially released, but the rumor is barely still in the 4 digits per fish.
Wow. So what do you know about the natural history of this fish?
Supposedly, they're very similar to a royal grama.
It's a grama. It's in that genus, right?
Yeah, it is a
grama
grama.
deyoungi or something like
Yep,
that.
grama
Yeah.
deyoungi.
Are they a deep water?
Nope.
Nope. They're a shallow water endemic to Cuba.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So it's like a royal grama, but yellow, basically.
The
Right.
hard part was getting the fish. He said that breeding them was easy.
So it's got to be, if you have a saltwater fish that's endemic to a small area where there's other things close by, it's got to be easy to breed.
Yeah.
Because the big challenge with breeding saltwater fish is not getting them to breed. It's raising the fry, right? And raising the fry is a challenge with saltwater fish because of their planktonic life stage. Their planktonic life stage is what gives them broad ranges. That's why the Naso tang essentially has a range from the Indian Ocean as far east as Hawaii, right? It's a fish that's found in Hawaii and off the coast of Kenya. Okay, Kenya, it's probably the blonde, but still, it's at least found in Australia. If there's a fish, and the example that I would go with was the Banggai cardinal fish, right? Banggai cardinal fish are found in Banggai Island because they don't have a planktonic life stage.
Yeah.
Does this?
They do, but it's a very short one.
It must be really short because the Keys are only like 60 miles away.
I know. So I'm holding the phone because I have a direct quote from Goldenberg, and this is the part that this is why this story means so much to me.
Yeah.
We were dead set on making sure we did this right. I did not want to be a scumbag and smuggle and risk things. The industry doesn't need any more of that. We set out to prove that you can do it correctly. It might take a bit longer, but there are channels and you can get it done.
Nice.
And so they, for a while, were the only people breeding them, but now they're producing enough that other places are starting to get them and the price is starting to drop. And that was their eventual goal. I think it was Gardner, and I'm looking as I'm talking. I think he said he would consider it his like magnum opus, basically, if this fish becomes ubiquitous in the hobby. Like that would be his contribution to this industry.
I still can't get over the fact that there's a marine fish endemic to Cuba. That does not make sense to me. The Straits of Florida are not that wide. How are they not found in the Keys?
Don't know.
Or in Jamaica. Jamaica is, wow, that's stunning to me.
Maybe it has something to do with the way the currents flow.
It's got to be.
So here's the Gardner's quote. In the case of Grandma de Young Eye, though, I think jumping through all the hoops involved in getting them into the U.S. market was more difficult than rearing them and equally important. If this leads to their widespread availability, then I would consider it my most important contribution to the industry. This is a guy who has bred 55 species of marine fish, by the way.
To him, I would like to say, thank you.
Yeah.
One little extra quirk in the story that I think is really funny and really cute. Let me make sure I get I'm sorry, I keep referring back to this, but this story deserves, at least in my head, like the details matter and they're really cool. So they went through all this effort to get these fish. So then they bred them, and then the question was, can we sell them?
Oh, right.
So then they got the U.S. Treasury Department involved. And the U.S. Treasury Department, and it's paraphrasing a little bit, but they were basically like, well, the 6 adult broodstock fish that came from Cuba have permits, right? Yeah. And the ones that you want to sell were bred on American soil, right? Yeah. Then you don't need a permit for them.
Wow.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I have seen those fish on the list, and I never knew the story.
Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
And so I wanted to for me, this was the final fish I wanted to talk about, because this, every step of the way for me was amazing. These guys literally did the impossible in my mind. They managed to attain broodstock of fish that you can't get, period.
Yeah.
They found a way to do it legally. They got the permits. They double-checked their butts the entire time.
That's
they managed
so
to
cool.
breed it. They managed to sell it. And now, it's so exciting to me because for the last few years, I've been slowly watching these things drop in price as it's becoming more common.
Now I want one. I mean, 2.
Now I want somebody out there to tell us to order one in and also pay us to bring one in.
And so,
because they are available every week to us now, all the time.
And
they're just ridiculously expensive. I think they'd probably be $3,000 or $4,000 to sell. So your cost, but if you want to be a part of history,
right,
buy 2.
Yeah. But I mean,